It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. What's up? What's happening? Welcome in on a Tuesday, a Vibe Check Tuesday. Of course, our phone number that you can hit us at there, starting pretty much immediately with a question that so many of you are eager to answer at 301-230-0980 is, who do you want the Commanders to take at number 2? Now, we do not do this often because if I'm being totally honest, I would quit if we spent every single day between the time the season ended and the draft going, hey, who do you, the fans, want for the number 2 overall pick? Because it matters next to none. You have professional scouts who are getting paid a lot of money. You have a general manager who's new and got paid a lot of money this offseason to make that determination for the team. And what they think is obviously the most important thing. It is not because I think that none of you, your opinion doesn't matter at all. It's not because I personally am not interested, but in a throwback to a previous era where we differentiate between things that are interesting and important, it is somewhat interesting, but not remotely important. That said, I do think it's interesting, and we are in the interesting business, to check in every once in a while as fans have continued to consume copious amounts of content here on this radio station and others, and read things and listen to podcasts and such, and gather more information about who these quarterbacks are. I think what's been fun is getting to take command with Logan specifically because, like so many of you, I revere Logan's opinion and know that, because he studies it at an incredibly intense level, and has an expertise when he is studying. We can all look at, Russian as a language written in front of us. Most of us don't know what it means. Logan has that higher level of understanding when he's watching all 22 and really know what he's supposed to be looking for based off his own playing career, what works in this league, and an immense amount of time he's spent developing relationships with scouts as a player and now as a former player and analyst. And so it's been fun to watch his opinion evolve and take pieces of it, because I like to take the information he gives me and kind of put it in my formula of things that matter to me more maybe than they do to him. And that doesn't make either one of us right or wrong. It makes us 2 evaluators. That is the same process that GMs are going with across the league. There are 2, there are certainly going to be scouts, whether that's low-level scouts, high-level scouts, whatever, who think Jaden Daniels and Drake May are the exact, they agree on who Drake May is. They agree on who Jaden Daniels is. And they want opposite guys because the things that they value are different. So I think it's fun as we are in our Vibe Check Tuesday, closest to the 1 month away from the draft mark. And especially as we are hearing all kinds of rumors flying at the NFL's annual meeting, the owners' meetings down in Orlando, I would like to know where all of you are. 301-230-0980. I would like, for once, your strong opinions and feelings on who the Commanders should take at the number 2 overall pick. I'm going to do one thing that will upset a small part of you, but I'm going to take Caleb Williams off the board because he's not going to be on the board. I know that there are some people who just seem to think that Chicago's not going to take Caleb Williams. That's not what's happening. Chicago is taking Caleb Williams at number 1. I would actually bet my life savings on that and feel like I'd be a pretty good place to double my money. I don't think that the bookies would take that. Is kind of where we're at on that. He's an overwhelming favorite for a reason. He is the best player in this draft. It is the correct thing for Chicago to do. It is a no-brainer. They will do it. They're going to take Caleb Williams at number 1. So Caleb Williams is not available, and he is also not available. You can't call and say, I would trade up for Caleb Williams because you're not giving, you'd have to give up 3-4 first-round picks, and that's not happening. So Caleb Williams is off the board. Other than that, everyone else is on the board. If you want to go off the board, so to speak, and take a defensive tackle, or an offensive tackle, I should say, you want to take Marvin Harrison Jr. for whatever reason, that's fine. But knowing what we know, whatever it is that you value, Who do you want the Commanders to take and why? 301-230-0980. I will say, Logan and I had a really good conversation about J.J. McCarthy earlier as that rumor made its way around yesterday thanks to Tom Pelissero. And we're going to play a sneak preview. This podcast isn't coming out till tomorrow, but we are going to give you a sneak preview coming up at 5 o'clock today via Take Command. Logan and I talking about McCarthy. So that's coming up in a little bit. Your calls, though, are next. 301-230-0980. Who do you want at number 2? This is The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show here on this Vibe Check Tuesday. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. taking your calls on who you think the Commanders should take at number 2 in the upcoming 2024 NFL Draft. We are kind of talking about this because, one, it's a month from the draft. 2, it is the rumors are flying hot and heavy right now, and this comes on the heels of, for instance, Mike Garafolo yesterday speaking on his NFL Network show, The Insiders, and saying that he's hearing a lot of Jaden Daniels stuff when it comes to Washington.
I love Jaden Daniels. I think he's sensational.
Oh, yeah.
I think he does a lot of the things that you're talking about that you have to do in the modern NFL. Drake May, a little bit more of a traditional style quarterback. Also got that commanding presence. I'll be at UNC with Steve Smith for his pro day. So tune into that on
Steve's
NFL
pro
Plus.
Day?
What's that?
Steve Smith's
No,
pro day?
Steve Smith for Drake May's pro day. Okay, and there's Drake May right there.
Very serious television show
He's
they
a good
do.
route runner.
What's that?
Steve was a good route runner.
Stay on topic here. Drake May, okay, a guy that's in consideration there. But I'll tell you what, when you poll the other teams here, they think that Washington is locking in on Jaden Daniels for whatever that's worth. Really, it doesn't matter what they think in the end, but they're starting to get the feel like he's going to wind up being the guy at number 2. We shall see.
We shall see, which was funny because Dan Quinn at the NFC Coaches Breakfast this morning said, if anybody knows who we're taking it to, please can someone tell me because Adam and I haven't decided yet. That didn't stop Tom Pelissero yesterday from saying this.
It's been really interesting because everybody's always trying to figure out, especially at the top of the draft, what the other teams are doing. When I've had conversations here with executives for other teams who know Adam Peters well, know the situation well, the most popular answer for what they do at number 2 is J.J. McCarthy. So a lot of drama still to come.
Just like Mac Jones. Just like Mac Jones the last time Adam Peters had this situation.
With the number 2 pick or wherever Washington ends up picking, whoever ends up picking at number 2.
So all of a sudden everyone's like, Garafolo says Jaden. Everyone else says May, except for Pelissero, who says he's talked to people who know Adam Peters and look at the situation, and their best guess is they take J.J. McCarthy. So welcome to silly season. Who do you want? 301-230-0980. That is our phone number. Paulie gets us started. Paulie, what's up? Thanks for calling. You're first up on this Vibe Check Tuesday.
Hell to the W, man. How you doing, Craig?
I'm good, bro. How are you? And who would you like to see them take at number 2?
I'm doing well, man. Hey, at number 2, I want Drake May. I've been saying this all along. If we wasn't going to trade up to get Caleb Williams, I wanted Drake May. I want a traditional quarterback, man. I don't want an athlete playing quarterback. I want a quarterback. I want somebody that's an assassin in the pocket. You know, I want a Justin Herbert type, a Joe Burrow type. You know, a quarterback who's a quarterback with some athletic ability, not an athlete playing quarterback. And if they take J.J. McCarthy, I'm going to lose my freaking mind on 980. I promise you.
You want to know, but Paulie, you want to know what's really funny? The thing you described, a quarterback who's a quarterback and can rip balls from the pocket consistently with athletic ability, you know you're describing J.J. McCarthy, right?
No, I'm not. J.J. McCarthy is a game manager. And I'm saying this, the only reason why he's getting all this hype right now, he could thank Brock Purdy.
They're totally different. Not totally different, but they're different players. McCarthy's more physically gifted by a significant amount. No.
McCarthy is 6'2". Brock Purdy is 6'1". But Brock Purdy weighs 220. McCarthy's 205, 210.
Purdy's got a 7 out of 10, maybe 6.5 out of 10 arm. JJ's got a 7.5, 8. He also probably runs a solid.
My point is, Purdy's a game manager. He runs the offense. Right?
Sure, and that's what I hear you. That's what McCarthy did at Michigan, no doubt about it. I think that there is questions about whether he can do more because he managed like Brock Purdy, by the way, who just was in the Super Bowl. Which,
can I say this one thing before you let me go to?
What's up?
Say this one thing. All right, my thing with McCarthy is if he's so good, why wasn't he showcased at Michigan? Don't tell me about all the talent and stuff they had because John Harbaugh has always been a run-first coach, right? But he sure did showcase Andrew Luck for 2-3 years.
Well, I mean, that was different. Luck is a generational prospect. Also, I would argue that Jim Harbaugh might have known what he was doing because they won the national championship.
I'm not saying he didn't know what he was doing. I'm saying, like, don't all of a sudden tell me that J.J. McCarthy is climbing up the charts and he ain't played a game in 4 months. And I know he won the national championship and all that, but he had a whole season, too. He's a game manager. That's too high. Top 10 is a too high pick.
Here's what I would tell you, Paulie. This would be my pitch to you. If they take McCarthy, and I'm not telling you that Drake isn't the higher upside prospect, and I like a lot about Drake's game. There's stuff that scares the bejesus out of me about Drake's game, and I would say the same about McCarthy and the same about Daniels. But if they wind up taking McCarthy, I think you're underselling him. That's all I would tell you.
They're all flawed, and really the guy I would take would be Big Penix Energy. You know, I just don't like his age. At 25, entering the season, you're talking about 5-year contract. He'd be 30 when he's up to renegotiate his deal. So if it wasn't for his age, I would be champion Michael Penix in that spot. I'll take Drake May, man. I need me a passer, Josh Allen type player. Hail to the W.
All right, Paulie. Thank you. Paulie getting us started here on the Hoffman Show. More of your calls at 301-230-0980. I think that, like, this is the thing. These quarterbacks all exist on relatively equal levels, I think, for me at this point. But there are different flavors, if you will. Like, what matters the most to you is going to inform which guy that you like. I'd also, again, say, like, if you think McCarthy's a game manager, that's fine. I want a really, really good game manager who can grow into being a better player. Like, I want Drake May to be a game manager his rookie year. That dude ain't ready to go, fly ride without training wheels his first year. I think that's probably an important thing that we should say. I know that makes people lose their mind. How could you take a guy at number 2 if he's not ready to play? Most dudes don't come in the league ready to play, at least not ready to play well. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Justin in Richmond. Justin, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show. We got Justin, or what happened with Justin?
Justin actually wanted the Commanders to trade back and draft Marvin Harrison. That's what he wanted. And I told him we were sticking to quarterback.
Okay, well, I wish we still had Justin on the phone because I would like to know then who does he think is playing quarterback?
It's a great question.
Look, I'm not mad at getting Marvin Harrison. If you can figure out how to do that, like that dude's awesome. That dude's the best receiving prospect in a long time. And by the way, it's crazy because the third, fourth, and fifth best receiving prospects in a long time, might be later in this draft. Like, these dudes are nasty. Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors, like, these dudes are sick. But at the end of the day, like, you got to have someone play quarterback, and you got to get one this year. And maybe, there's a lot of late push for a guy like Spencer Rattler. I've seen a couple of analysts that I respect being like, he's my QB5 behind McCarthy, ahead of Bo Nix, ahead of Michael Penix. So, like, if you're like, I think we can get Spencer Rattler at 36, and I'd like Marvin Harrison Jr. for him to throw to, and I'll, we'll coach him up. I guess that's an option. That wouldn't be the option I go with, but at least you'd be putting a quarterback in a hella good position. All right, 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Let's go to JYD, Junkyard Dog, with us on the Hoffman Show. JYD, who you got? What you got?
Well, I would drop back somewhat in the first round, and I would take Bo Nix.
Okay, what do you like about Bo Nix?
The type quarterback that you basically, he's not a shiny toy or whatever. You can drop him into any offense, I think, and he can throw the ball all over the field. He can throw the ball in the intermediate numbers of the field. This guy basically playing quarterback in the National Football League, you come upon a lot of third down situations. And if you look at the kid from LSU, they faced less third down situations than any team that we're talking about or whatever. You must be able to produce on third down with your arm. It's not always going to be with your legs or whatever. legs can be broken or whatever.
Well, technically arms can be broken too, but I hear what you're saying.
In the NFL and being able to hit those third down plays.
Yeah, totally. I hear you, which is, by the way, why a lot of people like J.J. McCarthy, because he was in a lot of those third down situations. But oh, there you go. Sorry, phone got cut off there. But like McCarthy had to deliver, like they'd run the ball twice and be getting a bad way, and McCarthy'd have to bail him out, and he did on a fairly regular basis. Like his third down and red zone stuff is the best tape in the class, but he doesn't have a lot of tape in other places. Meanwhile, like a lot of the stuff that gets you in those third down situations or out of those third down situations, those deep digs and comebacks and those types of things, Drake May's got the best tape in of the guys that we're talking about. Nix is a really interesting prospect because I think there's a lot of talent there. He's a good athlete. He's got a good arm. He's kind of like a plus, like a slight plus at basically everything. But his offense didn't ask him to do a whole lot. Like he threw a ton of screens, like bubbles, and then a ton of short game stuff that's like predetermined, easy throws, not a lot of mental processing, not a lot of risk, not a lot of tight windows, like all of that stuff that you need to see in the NFL. It's limited on Nix's tape. Which is funny because, like, that's kind of the complaint about a guy like McCarthy, except for instead of, like, oh, the other stuff on his tape is handoffs, where it is with McCarthy, the other stuff on Nix's tape is, like, the same amount of plays, just bubble screens. Yet we don't knock Nix necessarily for that, or some people don't knock Nix for that. So it's funny how that gets turned. I do think that Bo Nix is very interesting. Obviously, that's a trade back scenario. So maybe if you like Bo Nix better than or kind of equal to some of these other guys, and you can also get something else, and you trade back, especially way back or trade back twice, you can accumulate a ton of draft capital. I don't think that's crazy, probably overcomplicating it, but something to consider for sure. All right, we got some more calls coming in. So more options for sure. Some arguments as I look up at the call screener. Some names on the board that haven't been said yet. 301-230-0980. We are 1 month from the NFL draft. Who do you want the Washington Commanders to take at the number 2 overall pick? That's what we're checking on this Vibe Check Tuesday. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. What do we make of the J.J. McCarthy rumors? Logan Paulson and I discuss at the top of the hour. But right now, 1 month from the NFL draft, who do you want to see the Commanders pick at number 2? It's a Vibe Check Tuesday, and we're taking your calls, 301-230-0980. Let's keep things going with Emery. Emery, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
What's up, Craig? This
What's
is Emery,
up,
like the boy,
Emery?
but you can call me M. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, Jaden Daniels for President Holmes, all that Drake May talk, all those Bo Nix and everybody else, listen, if they not better than Will Levis, you got to throw them back. And I don't feel like Drake May is that much better than Sam Howell. I mean, we could have paid fifth-round money for a first-round quarterback. Don't make sense to take the next year upgrade when you could just get somebody who's actually mobile and can actually manage the game and doesn't throw 21 interceptions in a year. I'm just saying.
I feel like you just said 17 different things, and I'm confused at who you're talking about with half of them.
Well, this is the thing. So when you look at Drake May, what I saw when I looked at his tape was that he's constantly kind of fluttered because of his line. That's the same thing that Sam Howell was. Because Sam Howell was constantly under duress, he was constantly throwing interceptions. One thing about Jaden Daniels, he doesn't throw interceptions. He threw, 4 interceptions the whole year, and he has a deep ball, and we have better receivers than Neighbors and Thomas. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a no-brainer. How often do we get to choose at the number 2 spot?
No, I think you make some good points. I'd also push back on a couple, including that there are better receivers in D.C. than Neighbors and Thomas. There are especially not better receivers in D.C. than Neighbors and Thomas relative to the defenders that they'll be facing. With all due respect to the SEC, it ain't the NFL. Malik Neighbors compared to your average SEC corner, compared to Terry McLaurin versus your average NFL corner, like that's advantage Neighbors all day. Same with Thomas over Jahan. That's not a fair fight. I'd also say, relatively speaking, Jaden's line was a lot better in college than Drake's or what Sam dealt with here. So, you're comparing apples and oranges a little bit, but I do think some of the comparisons do hold up, right? I think Jaden's ability to avoid turnovers is something that is applaudable, is something that is a huge positive. And part of that occasionally is he's not, instead of forcing a ball, he'll pull it down and run. And when you're as good at running as he is, that's a good thing. I think that there's some good points, but let's not get carried away with some of the comparisons between LSU and an NFL team.
Well, I don't think you can compare the receivers on a college team to the receivers on a National Football League team. Scary Terry is at the top echelon of receivers, not just in the league, but period.
Right, here's the thing: Malik Neighbors might be right there with him. He's that good.
Yeah, but he's not proven.
I mean, he was proven as hell in college, and it matters who you play.
He's coming to lean and tank, though. Look at Addison from last year. You didn't see the same type of production from Addison.
Malik Neighbors and Jordan Addison are not remotely the same caliber of prospects.
The explosion is similar.
We got to get past 40 times in 3-cone drills, and we got to get a little deeper in the sky. And thanks for the call. I appreciate it. I love your enthusiasm, but I'm telling you right now, Anthony, if you took a poll of NFL GMs and put them on equal contracts tomorrow, I don't know that it'd be unanimous that Malik Neighbors isn't that Terry McLaurin tomorrow is selected over Malik Neighbors. That's the kind of prospect that some people think Neighbors is.
I mean,
think of when Jamar Chase came in the league or JJ came in the league.
Yeah.
Those dudes were top 5 receivers pretty instantly. Yeah. There's a chance Harrison, Adun, different GMs, not all of them are going to be right, obviously, but there are certain GMs that would tell you Adunze will be that, Neighbors will be that, and or Marvin Harrison would be that. Certainly Harrison is the biggest guy there. I think the other two are pretty evenly split, but again, you're Terry versus an NFL corner is a tough day for Terry, even if he wins more than he loses, because he's awesome. He's a top 10 receiver.
Yeah.
Malik Neighbors versus an SEC corner, even Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama, who might be first-round picks.
He was cooking it.
Like, yeah, barbecue chicken. And Brian Thomas against the second-best dude that some team has got? Come on now. Come on. And that's why it's hard. Like, that doesn't mean that Jaden isn't good, because sometimes, Jaden's job was to hit a wide-open guy in stride, and you want to know what he did with relatively remarkable consistency en route to the Heisman Trophy and a bunch of wins? Do that. You can only take the test that's in front of you. So it's not meant to diminish Jaden, but, let's not get crazy here.
I feel like that's the same argument you sort of can make for Joe Burrow, and
worked out, yeah.
When he was coming out, he had Jamar, he had Jefferson, he had Clyde Elaire, he had Randy Moss's son as a tight end.
Oh yeah,
so he had weapons galore, and I think a lot of people were questioning whether or not it was the offensive line that he was behind, the weapons around him that helped him become who he was.
And it worked out.
Yeah.
Because, and the thing is with Burrow, he literally had the best season any of us had ever seen.
Yeah.
So it's I know his weapons are great, but other people have had great weapons and they've never done what he did.
Yeah.
And I think Jaden has some of that, not to the level that Burrow did, because Burrow also went undefeated and they won a national championship, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
Jaden, won the Heisman Trophy. He was the best player in college football. But being the best player in college football doesn't mean that you're going to be the best player in pro football. All right, let's keep going with Dontel. Dontel, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show. Who would you like to see the Commanders take with the number 2 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft?
Hey, Craig, how's it going, man? I appreciate you taking my call today.
You got it.
Real quick before, I don't mean to take up a whole lot of radio time, but real quick before I answer your questions, man, I just wanted to say my heart and prayers go out to everybody involved in the Baltimore situation.
Yes, sir.
That happened this morning, man. It was unfortunate, and, my prayers just go out to everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Such terrible news to wake up to. I appreciate you mentioning that. Absolutely. All right. And in the spirit of keeping people distracted from some of the sadness, let's keep going. Who you got at the number 2 pick?
Jaden Daniels, without question. Jaden Daniels don't only throw a big ball. He knows how to throw receivers open, and that's the gift that I think that he has, and that's what you need in the NFL. But with that being said, they need to also update their receivers, because it doesn't matter who we take at quarterback if they don't update the receivers, because we don't have a player that can win those 50-50 balls, if you know what I mean. Terry McLaurin is good. I give you that, but he's not a game changer. But Jaden Daniels, I think, can help us along the way, and that's who I would take with this pick.
I appreciate the call, Dontel. I think Terry is such an interesting receiver because he's been playing X, and I don't know that his highest and best use is as an X. It might be as a Z. I do think he's, for his size, remarkable at 50-50 balls, but he's not like your big X receiver, and I think that's an area where you could go in this draft. I also think that great offensive coordinators understand what routes certain guys run really well and put them in those situations, and Eric Bieniemy did not do that for Terry McLaurin last year. I don't know that he did it for Jahan Dotson. I don't know that he did it for anyone in particular. It seemed like Curtis Samuel got lucky and was able to run a bunch of stuff that he's really good at. But they got to do better on the design front. And I do think Terry's skill set fits very well with some of the vertical nature of Cliff Kingsbury's probable offense. So I think that the receivers are okay for right now with the potential to be really, really good in this offense. They do need to add, though. They do. I would get a big X. I would get a slot guy. Like in one of our mock drafts, we took Ladd McConkey out of Georgia in the second round because he fell, and I'm like, sweet, if he's there, let's go. I think there's a lot of potential here to upgrade the receiver position, but I think it's a slight overstate to be like, they don't have anybody who's a game changer. Like, Terry McLaurin is one of the 10 best receivers in football, probably, and that certainly qualifies for me. All right, we got 3 folks on hold now, which means we have some lines open as well. 301-230-0980. We'll get to Keith, Mark, and JT next, and we'll see who else we can fit in before the end of the hour here on the Team 980. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll dive deeper into the J.J. McCarthy rumors, as those have obviously taken over the week down in Orlando at the NFL's annual meeting. Logan and I talked about it, and I think it's pretty interesting to discuss. So we'll continue to have that discussion, obviously, on here. We'll play you that conversation from Take Command, but we'll have it amongst ourselves as well on the phones on this 5 Check Tuesday at 301-230-0980. Let's keep it going with Keith in Clinton. Keith, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show. Who do you want to see the Commanders take at the number 2 overall pick?
Hey, Craig. I'd like to go with Jaden Daniels because every throw that I'm watching, and if I'm not mistaken, you correct me if I'm wrong, your highlight reels are supposed to show some of your best throws, correct?
Oh, for sure. I mean, that is by definition a highlight reel, for sure.
Exactly. Jaden Daniels, I didn't see too many throws that his receivers had to break strat, stop, wait for the ball, turn in another direction or anything like that. With May, I saw, just too many plays where they had to slow down. Even when the receivers, a couple of them, when the receiver was wide open, literally had to slow down. It was like, why is he underthrowing the ball? So Mays wasn't that good. His throws weren't that good. Caleb kind of scares me, even if they do a switch and we have a chance to get Caleb. When he said at the combine why he did not do the combine, well, my family and my friends and some of the people I talked to felt it was not good for me to do that. I wasn't about that because at that point, I'm telling you, at some point it's going to carry over if we get him to where it's almost like RG3's father again. Telling putting his input in everything.
I think people, to be honest, Keith, I think people are too scared here by RG, and I don't know that applies. Here's the baseline for Caleb, and I don't want to spend too much time on Caleb because we've kind of ruled him out because I'm pretty sure Chicago is going to take him. Right. He's the overwhelming favorite to be the number 1 pick. That's what you want. So why would anything he does can only hurt him? It can't help him. And so I understand the sentiment and where it comes from, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. I will say your point about Jaden and Drake is a really good one. Jaden's highlights are sensational. Drake drives you nuts with some of the inconsistencies. I think the hard part is, and this is where different evaluators can come to different conclusions, is do you look at Jaden and be like, well, damn, he had great receivers who got open all the time because they're NFL caliber and he was behind a good O-line, so he's going to be able to be comfortable, while Drake is dodging chaos at all times and none of his weapons were NFL caliber except for one in Tez Walker, and be like, well, maybe that was the receiver's fault. He's dodging pressure, so okay, the throw's a little behind, but it's a miracle he got it off. And I think that's what makes this process really challenging, because I agree with you, and especially early in the process, I was so high on Jaden because I think I was watching a lot of the TV copy and some of that stuff, and I think as I've gone through it, it's evened out more, but there are definitely days where I still lean towards Jaden Daniels because I'm just like, I don't know, man. I like the film that looks really good. I like the highlights that look really good.
I do.
Because you can see it,
Right. And I don't want to make things complicated. I'm going to let you go. I don't want to make things complicated. Let's stop trying to be complicated like we've always been. Draft back. Let's trade back to get more picks, and we're getting middle-class talent. We finally have a chance to get top talent. Don't trade back. Go ahead and get the quarterback. Don't try to get everybody this year. We have another year coming up. Get the top quarterback. Get Jaden Daniels. Don't trade our second-round pick. Use our picks. Go get an offensive lineman, since that's the next best group, the offensive lineman or wide receiver with our second pick. And just keep it simple. That's it.
I don't think that there's any issue with that strategy. Appreciate the call, Keith. Let's go to Mark in Chevy Chase, who I think disagrees. Mark, go ahead. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Yeah, I'd like to first off say that I rooted for Michigan this season, my nephew's alma mater. So there is a little heartfelt wanting to get JJ on the team. But that being said, I went to a Quaker school and we consensus build. I think that the consensus number 1 is Williams, Caleb Williams. I think at number 2, there is a consensus. I think that Maine, Daniels, JJ are garnering interest. So I would try trading down to 4. And the reason I do that is if you type in Arizona news or Marvin Harrison Jr. news, you can go all the way back to last October where they've been planning on drafting Harrison. So if at number 2 we can somehow drop down to number 4, pick a quarterback there, we'd only miss out on the Patriots pick of a quarterback, and Harrison at 2, acquire some more draft. And who knows? Maybe.
But
keep
if
on
you're,
hopping
but Mark,
down
here's
in
the thing.
draft.
Like, Mark, I hear your point. It sounds great, except for the part where if you're Arizona, you just stay put at 4. You don't have to give up any draft capital, and Marvin Harrison will fall to you. So why would you do that?
How would I do that? I'd go out and I'd say we're going to go get Harrison and try to strong.
And they will laugh at
Arizona
you. That you can't. That's
up.
no. All right, Mark. Thanks for the call. Some of y'all have played too much Madden with the force trades on. Like just straight up with like, you can put stuff out there, and you can try, but at the end of the day, Arizona would be like, go ahead, take Harrison, because then we'll just either take a Dunze or we'll take whatever. And the reason, if you Google Arizona Cardinals news, you're seeing Marvin Harrison, is because of where they are right now. So no. Let's go to JT. JT, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Appreciate that, Craig. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for calling in. Who do you want to see the Commanders take it to?
In my personal opinion, we got to take JD. I think that Daniel's season alone, he didn't have those games where in your words, he forgot how to play quarterback.
Right.
I think you look over time with his progression from Arizona State. As a true freshman, he goes up there and beats Justin Herbert and a number 6 Oregon team. And then each year he just continues to get better. And I think when you his floor with him, with the running ability that he has, to me his floor is so much higher, in terms of him not being a bust. Because at the end of the day, I would say it's probably downfall or a comp, for someone, if he doesn't turn out who we want him to be, would be like Tyrod Taylor. But Tyrod Taylor didn't throw the ball like Jaden Daniels threw the ball in college. So I just think that, highlights aside, the season he had was one of the best statistical quarterback seasons of all time. In fact, it was better than Joe Burrow. Now, the team, they didn't win as much as that team did because their defense wasn't on that same level of that Burrow defense. But, then you look at what scares me about May. I see all the intangibles. I see the prototype size. But when you struggle against UVA, NC State, and a down Clemson team, to me, that's scary. And I'd rather go after Jaden Daniels because to me it seems like a safer pick with more athletic upside. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great call. I think that's the best Jaden Daniels argument that I hear because it hits on the highs, which is, and the reasons why he's so intriguing. He was money all year. The consistency from him was unlike Drake, and frankly, it was unlike Caleb. It's unlike McCarthy. It's unlike all of them. He had the best college season. And the only hole you can poke in it is he also had a good O-line, multiple NFL receivers, and it because his job was relatively easy. And you can say similar things about Joe Burrow a bunch of years ago, and he's worked out more than fine. So it is tempting. It is tempting. I get the Jaden Daniels thing. And to be very clear, I don't feel like I haven't given my opinion yet, and it's because I don't have a strong one. I honestly think that all three of these quarterbacks, McCarthy, Daniels, Drake, if coached up well, can succeed in this league. And so it's a matter of which guy do you like, how do you want to build your offense, and I think Daniels is a perfectly acceptable answer to succeed. All right, let's wrap up with Noel. Noel, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show. Who do you want to see at that number 2 pick for Washington?
Hey, Craig. Thanks for letting me call in again. I really understand a lot of the arguments for Jaden Daniels. I think he does have the highest floor. I truly believe, though, that Drake May has the highest ceiling, and I know how much of a risk he might be at pick number 2. But for me, I just think that, I want our team, I want the Commanders to eventually win a Super Bowl. Next year, I wouldn't be surprised if we got Jaden Daniels, that we would be 9-8 or 10-7 just based off of his skill. I really am intrigued, though, by Drake so much that as we continue to build the team and then have him potentially develop in Cliff's system, he could turn into something really special if we handle him properly with how he's going to be in the offense. I really think that if we just continue to just grow and grow with him as the QB, he's got a shot. And again, it's really close. I would still lean Drake. I don't blame people saying Jaden, but I really think Drake May has a lot of potential, and I wouldn't mind at all taking a bite of that apple. So
yeah, Noel, I think that's a great call. Thank you, and I think you've hit on the what's so tantalizing about Drake May is if he can get the footwork stuff figured out, and he learns how to play on time, on rhythm, on balance, and they build a system that accentuates his strengths. You're looking at a Herbert Allen type of guy. He's not quite physically either of those guys, but maybe there's some stuff in there that's better than those guys in certain areas. It feels hard to find something better than Allen in any area outside of consistency, but maybe it is the consistency. Maybe it's the approach that he takes and the mentality he brings into games that is not quite as loose as Josh Allen's can be at times. Maybe that's the thing that's his superpower, and if you can harness that, clean up the fundamentals, you're looking at a really high-level player. Could also never improve on that stuff and goes belly up, and you're screwed. So this is the challenge. This is why Adam Peters is getting paid very handsomely to make this determination, and why we're just going to sit here and watch with bated breath over the next month. So I think we got through all of that without a single J.J. McCarthy call, which honestly is not that surprising considering I think what his reputation is. But why is the quarterback from Michigan so intriguing? Why are so many NFL teams high on him? Well, we talked about it earlier today on Take Command. Logan Paulson and I did a podcast that's not even out for public consumption yet, but here's the thing. I'm in charge. So if I want to play a conversation from Take Command before it's out in podcast land, I can do that. And we're going to next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. 5 o'clock each day, we hit you with the top story. We call it Not My Beat. Anthony, do you have the fancy button ready? Because my computer's not working. Bing! So today's top story is from yesterday, in a way. It is when Tom Pelissero said this on NFL Network.
It's been really interesting because everybody's always trying to figure out, especially at the top of the draft, what the other teams are doing. When I've had conversations here with executives for other teams who know Adam Peters well, know the situation well, the most popular answer for what they do at number 2 is J.J. McCarthy. So a lot of drama. Still to come.
Just like Mac Jones, the last time Adam Peters had this situation.
With the number 2 pick or wherever Washington ends up picking, whoever ends up picking at number 2.
At number 2, we'll see. So that sparked a whole news cycle worth of J.J. McCarthy talk. And so Logan and Paulson and I just cozied up in the middle of that news cycle and said, let's discuss, shall we? And that is how we started Take Command today.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulson and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. Take Command podcast. That's Logan Paulson. I am Craig Hoffman. And Logan, we are inside 1 month to the NFL draft. Can you believe it?
I can believe it because it's already starting to be silly season. As you know, when it gets in that 1 month, things get a little bit crazy in terms of rumor mill. It started a little bit earlier than expected, but here we are, so that's always fun.
Yeah, I think I was reminded yesterday of just how silly this season can get. JP Finley was on the radio show with me on Monday, and he's like, remember when the Niners traded up and ultimately took Trey Lance, and everyone knew they were going to take Trey Lance because he was obviously the next guy. But we spent a month being like, did they really just trade up for Mac Jones? And so it's smokescreen season, it's silly season, it's speculation season, which I think leads us directly into our first topic. We'll get in a little bit more mock draft 4.0 and kind of breaking down some of the reaction to that later on in the show. But the biggest bombshell, or at least it seems like it is, but we're going to explain why it's not, this week is J.J. McCarthy all of a sudden being linked to the Commanders at 2. This is largely happening because Tom Pelissero was on his show on NFL Network, The Insiders, and said, I have talked to a lot of people who know Adam Peters very well, and I asked them what he thinks Peters will do, and he go, well, I know Adam, and I think he would take J.J. McCarthy. And I actually think on the surface that makes a lot of sense. If you look at some of the things that Brock Purdy was really successful at and why he has succeeded in the league, J.J. McCarthy has a lot of those similar characteristics. And so if you phrase it as looking at Adam Peters' history of what works, that seems like a pretty logical assumption. But what was not said is I have talked to people who know what Adam Peters is thinking for the Commanders in 2024, and they think he's going to take J.J. McCarthy. No. This is speculation based off of what these people who know Adam Peters think of Adam Peters. They might have ulterior motives this season, Logan. So to me, that's why this all of us, being able to be like, oh, okay, I understand what Tom is saying. Is really important, which I like to play media translator sometimes. Mm-hmm. But I also, how seriously should we be looking at J.J. McCarthy, potential number 2 overall pick when you break it down on film? So both of those things, wherever direction you want to go.
Yeah. So first off, I'm kind of surprised that Tom he can report that, I guess, but it is the way he worded it. It's a little he knows what he's doing. He's stirring the pot a little bit, which is fine. It is the season, so kudos to him. But
tis the season. He's got a television show.
Yeah, I think and he's got to do it every week probably, or every couple of days. So I think that's important for fans to understand. Fans are freaking out. Our producer just read us an email of a fan who was like, you can't do this. This is impossible. It's going to light the franchise on fire. And I think people are weighing those comments a little bit too seriously because it's he could have talked to me or so it could have been anybody. I know Adam and this is what he would do. And it's but you don't know what Adam's doing. And I think one of the things Adam's always been extremely clear about is his vision as a GM is to make it the coach's team, right? Is to be a conduit for finding talent for the coaches and the coach's vision, And so what Adam's going to do in this situation is going to be different than what Adam did when he was in San Francisco. So I think that's just important context to understand. And I think it's also important to talk about the player, J.J. McCarthy. And I think I've said this before on this show, do a lot of shows. So if I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry. But like one of the things, like when you watch Jaden Daniels, like when you watch his film, his game tape is the best, right? When you watch Drake May, his throws over the middle of the field are the best, right? His big time throws. When you watch J.J. McCarthy, his red zone, his third and long, his 2-minute stuff is excellent. And there are coaches and teams and evaluators that look at that and they say, this is what quarterbacking in the NFL in 2024 is going to look like. It looks like this. Projecting skill set, it becomes very easy to watch. Like I find myself doing it all the time. I don't know if I sent you that tape I was watching last night, but I watched his Iowa game last night, and you're like, this is an NFL throw. This is an NFL throw. This is an NFL throw. And then you compare that to someone like Jaden Daniels or even Drake May or Bo Nix or Michael Penix, where 75% of the offense is a screen or a bubble or a quick game. It kind of lets you rest your head easy on the pillow at night saying, I know JJ sees it, can process it, and can throw with the physical talent to get this done. So is 2 a little bit high given some of the risk factors associated with his low throw volume? I think absolutely. But at the same time, like, I had a scout tell me this once, and I think it's great insight. Cut-ups will lie to you, right? And so, but when you watch those cut-ups, he is by far the best guy in those categories. And so if that's what you like as a team, if that's what you like as an Italian evaluator, if that's what you like as a coach, that's what's important to you, I 100% understand you taking him that high. Now, I don't value those same things the exact same way, but there's something comforting about watching him throw for throw for throw and being like, that's an NFL progression. That's an NFL window. That's an NFL read. That's an NFL protection. Like that, there's something kind of comforting about that.
For sure. So I think a couple of things. One is ranking him at 2. If you really think he's the guy, you absolutely do not mess around. Like if you are that not a, we'd be kind of like we'll settle for him and like be fine because we traded back or whatever. If you're like JJ McCarthy is that bleepity bleeping dude, you take him at 2 and you do not risk it. Right. And you're at that point, Peters and Quinn and everybody better be right, because if you Mitchell Trubisky it or one of these other guys that's gone that high and it hasn't worked out and you were kind of off the board from everyone else and it doesn't work, that's your job. So you get one shot at that. And if you're a first-time GM and Adam Peters, like, do you want to take that risk? I don't know. We'll see. So that is one thing that I think is worth considering. Greg McElroy made this point on Mina Kimes' show. She actually does a really cool thing on her show that we should do at some point. I'm definitely going to do it on the radio show, where she brings on an analyst and she gives that analyst 2 players. And it's like, she calls it the war room. And so it's like, I'll give you 2 players. You take one, or like at number 1, I'll give you Caleb Williams or Drake May. You take Caleb Williams for Chicago. All right, now we're at 2, Washington. Drake May, Jaden Daniels. Take Drake May or Jaden Daniels and move on. And like 2 options, keep it moving throughout the draft. But as he was talking about J.J. McCarthy, McElroy, of course, the former Alabama quarterback and SEC Network analyst, said, I don't think people realize how hard it is to play quarterback in the kind of offense that they ran at Michigan, because they didn't ask him to do a lot. Now it's the opposite type of hard that Caleb Williams, for instance, had to deal with. Williams had a terrible defense, a terrible offensive line, and had to score 50 points a game, it felt like at times, by himself. But for McCarthy, it's like, hey, we're only you in high leverage situations, and you're not going to have any rhythm because we don't throw it that much. You're going to hand off. That didn't work. We're now in 3rd and 12, and we need you to make a big time throw. And so it's a lot easier at that point to be like, well, damn, he does it most of the time. And some of these throws that are off, it's like, well, yeah, he hasn't thrown it in a quarter and a half. He hasn't made a throw-in game in an hour of real time. And I think it's a really good point by McElroy, where in the NFL, you're obviously hoping to not, where you probably can't do that because you pass the ball with a little bit more frequency.
No, I think that's 100% right. And so again, like when you're watching the Iowa game, you're watching the national championship game, like watching the Alabama game, like how leveraged he is in 3rd down, these 2-minute situations, like it's tough, man. These are not like easy opportunities. There's no like easy mode. Like his easy mode is when he's handing it off, but when he's throwing the ball, like it's tough now. It is tough. And you see him have hard times. I forget what game it was. I was watching a game a couple of days ago, And, he's struggling back, really seeing it very well. The defense has him. But I'd say for the majority of the season, you see a guy who's competitive, he's athletic, he's got tremendous arm talent. Like watching him throw in person, you don't really, like everyone's talking about his pro day and how impressive it was. I honestly think it's because a lot of the media members who go to that event have not seen him throw in person before. And so when you see that ball jump out of his hand, you're like, this guy is different. And so you were talking about being off the board, and I'm not even sure they would be off the board with this selection as it kind of relates to other NFL teams. I think a lot of teams see how talented this kid is and his upside. I think it's just about, do you think you have the environment that can develop him? And I think when you look at him, he's a better athlete than Drake May. He's got a better arm than Jaden Daniels. Like he's been in an offense that is, again, very, very challenging from a leverage difficult. There's a lot of stuff to like. And I think so of him going at 2, I could definitely see, Adam Peters or Dan Quinn saying, and imagine what this guy's like in the room. That's something we're not privy to. When I went to his press conference when I was at the combine, and just the way he stood at the podium, the way he spoke to the crowd, he's charismatic, he's relatable. And Jaden Daniels is standing right next to him, and Jaden Daniels is quiet and kind of, that's his personality. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think there's something about that traditional quarterback personality, that traditional quarterback bravado that's going to entice some teams. So there's a lot of factors here that we're not privy to. But I think in terms of the stuff you see on tape, there is definitely an argument and definitely a perspective. And I'm not saying they should do this. Let's just be very clear. But if they did do this, I'd be like, sick. Let's see something. They must like the kid. Because when you look at the talent, man, he is uber, uber talented. And I think that's something that I find very intoxicating as well, with him specifically.
So what are the biggest thing we'll bring up as a negative is throw volume. But okay, that is what it is. It's not actually that makes the evaluation hard, but it's not actually a negative. I guess you less experience, you've seen less stuff by a little bit, but what are the negatives on him? Do you think he's behind these other guys in terms of prospects? Everything you just said makes him sound like he'd be a gem.
Yeah, and I think that's why people are excited about him. I think that's why people in the NFL are excited about him. And I think that's why if you picked him at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you'd be like I would be doing backflips because I'm like, this dude has the potential, the ceiling to be one of these other guys. I think the thing is when you talk to quarterbacks about him and about this process and about the throw volume, it's just he can do it. I've seen him do it. I've watched him throw. He has the ability to layer throws, but he just doesn't know always when you watch the film of when to do it. And in the NFL, you're going to have to learn on the job. And I don't think that's not always the most conducive environment to do that. You'll see him again in the Iowa game, he's throwing a deep dig. So first off, he fits it in this incredibly tight window. So great job. The next play, the configuration of the defense is slightly different. He doesn't need to laser it. He needs to kind of put it over somebody and drop it in the bucket. It sails a little bit on him and he misses the throw. And I'm like, he can do that, but he just doesn't. And so the inconsistency with the footwork that you see with Drake May that leads to the income isn't there with JJ McCarthy. It's just he doesn't have the throw volume that Drake May does. And I think that's the thing that is a little bit worrisome as a prospect is, I don't want you learning and figuring this out when you have to carry a team. And I think that's why, to me, I kind of bucket him and Drake May into the same category. Kind of. Obviously, they're different players, but there's a similarity in that I think they would be excellent pros if they could sit for a year and just kind of get more throws, practice, be in the offense, develop some better habits with regards to certain things. But I think that's the thing that gets really nervous is it's good. The good is very good, but there's also this learning curve that he hasn't accommodated yet, which makes me a little bit nervous.
So the last thing I want to hit on real quick on quarterback, because I've been thinking about this a lot, because I kind of flip it and say, if these guys are all on the same tier, then trading back is whatever, because at that point, you don't care which of the three that you really get. You have some preference, but not so strong that it's not worth whatever else you would add on the later picks that you accumulate. But I feel like these stylistically that I find that hard to believe that that's going to be the case, which is why I keep coming back to, I think the outcome is they take one of these guys at 2. So is that accurate that the styles are so different that even if they're on the same tier, if you're a GM, you probably have a pretty strong preference of one of the three.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think there's going to be a stylistic preference and a personality preference. I think you're going to fall in love with one of them. You know, you're going to like through the combine, through the pro days, through the personal visits, not the event themselves, but the dinner pre and post that you have with your staff and this player, right? Like I heard something on Daniel Jeremiah's podcast where the scouting department took the whole offense from, I forget, it was USC out so they could see how Carson Palmer interacted with the team and, you know, kind of how the guys gravitated towards them. And I think that's where someone's going to say, like, this is the differentiating factor. Because, again, like, we've talked about the pros and cons of all three of these guys. And, you know, Jaden Daniels is a guy that I think is a dynamic electric playmaker. Fundamentals are tight, releases quick, great deep ball. Don't see the throws over the middle of the field. It's there, but not with the volume you want to see. And then we've talked about Drake May, talked about JJ McCarthy. I really think it's the intangible stuff. And I think that's something as an evaluator of the draft process that I cannot overstate how important that is. Like, I have talked to guys about prospects before, and they're like, he's just a weird guy. I don't like him as a person. And then that's the differentiating factor. And I think like that's something that I keep coming back to is if they're all in the same tier, right? If they're all in the same tier, you're going to like one of them more than the others. You're going to want to work with one more than the others. And I think that's the crux of this, right? Like, let's say you love JJ McCarthy and you're kind of lukewarm on Drake May, just hypothetically. It could be the reverse. Let's say you love Drake and you're lukewarm on JJ. You're going to pick the guy that you love. Like, there's no doubt about it. And you should pick him at 2. Because I don't think there's a big enough discrepancy, especially with how teams are kind of hungering for this quarterback in this year's draft. Seemingly, there's all these quarterback needy teams kind of right in the same area. You might not be able to get back up and get them. And I think that's the big concern here with trading back than trying to trade back up is you're going to miss the guy that you want because you were trying to get too cute. So,
yeah, I think that's ultimately probably where they land. You know, we'll see if New England doesn't want to do quarterback this year and Minnesota's desperate. Can you figure that out and like get back to 3 if you don't like the same guy that Minnesota wants? But yeah, that's the thing is like this becomes a big, on some level, game of chicken, but it's also a draft of like who are the scouts and especially GMs that have good information. Because if you've got 2 teams that want Drake May, let's say that, and you're not one of them, you love JJ and you're like, JJ's our guy. Like, we're going to figure out how to get JJ. But I got 2 teams that are desperate for Drake May. Then, or like, you know, New England loves Drake May. Can you entice Minnesota to come up to 2 and then be like, sorry, New England, Drake May's gone. You want to trade back with us and you pick up something extra to go, you know, back to 11, up to 3. Like, you do this, but like you said, you might also be getting too cute there. Just take your guy and let New England and Minnesota play their game and you know, do their trade while you get to sit back and be like, we got the guy we want. Our hands are clean. So it becomes this, again, how solid is your information? What's your risk tolerance? And we don't know any of this about Adam Peters. We know he's willing to move. We've seen that with John Lynch and Kyle out in San Francisco with the Trey Lance deal and some others. But just how much risk tolerance do they have? We'll find out. Do you have any inclination, like if you had to guess today based off of, because like, I guess this would be the other part too, is like how much of this is about what Adam likes, how much of this is about what Dan likes, how much of this is about what Cliff likes and what Cliff wants for the offense. Is there any of those 3 that you would lean towards, or it's just impossible to know because of the personality piece, and that's going to be the big separator?
I think the personality piece is going to be the big separator. And, you know, initially, like I kind of thought Jaden Daniels was going to be the guy because I do think the kind of spread them out offense, the air raid offense, and I know he's not running the air raid offense specifically anymore, but there's principles there, right? It just functions better when the quarterback can move around a little bit. Like the problem when you're in the gun a lot is it limits the runs you can get to. It limits the direction you can run, limits the types of runs you can have. And I think when you add the quarterback, it adds this diversity, the quarterback running element, it adds this diversity to the backfield. Now I say that, but you know, when you watch JJ, for example, like they run quarterback power with him at Michigan. They run zone read with him, and he's very effective. He's outrunning DBs, he's outrunning safeties. So maybe you say, we like the arm talent, and even though he's not quite a good runner, we say JJ. So, but initially, I think Jaden's quick release. I think the way he sees stuff. I've talked to a couple people over the course of the last couple of weeks who say he's an excellent worker. He prepares like at a very, very high level. So I'd probably lean that way ever so slightly, but I do think this JJ thing is plausible. I know fans maybe don't want to hear that, but I would just say go watch a highlight of him, go watch a cut up of him, go watch a game, and he's gonna miss throws, no doubt about it. But like his big time stuff is big time, and when he runs, he's fast, and he's bigger than the other guy. You know, he's 6'1". I think he weighed in at 218 at the combine, 220 at the combine.
Yeah, I remember I watched an interview with him, and Matt, like our pal Matt Miller, is not a big dude, but like we've seen NFL players on camera before. Yeah. JJ's not as small as I think people think he is.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is you go back to, and again, I think Drake May, like when you look at the things that they did in 2021, Cliff did in 2021 in terms of throwing those deep digs, those drifts over the middle of the field, like Drake does a great job of that. And so I think they all have their thing and the thing that I'm encouraged by with this whole process, Cliff has the wherewithal, the staff has the wherewithal to build a program around that player, to kind of say, this is what this guy did well. Let's maximize this. Let's limit what they do poorly. And so that's why I think that ultimately, like, I don't want to say it doesn't matter between these three guys, because I think there's an element of the talent you're bringing in, but I think that the staff is going to be able to speak to the skill set at a high level. But again, kind of to your original question, I'd probably lean ever so slightly to JJ, but I just wanted to point out that those other guys have a lot of merit in some of the offensive principles Cliff has used before.
And just to clarify, you said Jay there. You meant Jaden. You leaned slightly towards Jaden Daniels.
Who did I say?
Yeah. You said JJ.
Yeah, I meant Jaden. Yeah.
But you meant JD.
Yes.
Not JJ.
Correct.
And then we got just a whole initials, potpourri here. For whatever it's worth, this morning at the NFC coaches breakfast, Dan Quinn did say, if all these reports out there, if anybody knows who they're taking, please let him know, because in his conversations with Adam, they don't know yet. So it is all just speculation, but I would say for what we're trying to do, it's not really speculating. It's just trying to make a guess based off the information that we have and where we think they're trying to go.
And also, I think it's important just to kind of say, like, we're informing the process, right? I think we're trying to peel back the curtain a little bit and inform the process. And I think if they were to take JJ too, I know a lot of fans are like, no, burn the building down, whatever. But I do think
Please don't burn the building down. We do not. No arson on this podcast.
We don't encourage that. But I would kind of be like, okay, now let's see what they do with that, right? Drake May, same thing. Jaden Daniels, same thing. And so I think that's how close these guys are, and it really comes back to that personal preference. So I think the reason I wanted to talk about it is because the reaction was so negative. But and again, that's probably a little higher than he should go. But when it comes to quarterback, get the guy you want. Get the guy you want. So
you think he's that good? Take him. Don't overthink it. All right, more from Take Command and the Take Command podcast feed, including a discussion of the rule changes that have gone through over the last 24 hours, banning of the hip drop tackle, and this new kickoff rule Logan and I discussed. And, you can hear that in the Take Command podcast feed or on YouTube. You can watch full episodes now at the Team 980. Yes, we've moved it from 106.7 The Fans page over here to the good side. To the Team 980. What a weird bit I just did. When we get back, we will discuss the rule changes here on the radio. New kickoff rule, hip drop tackle, goodbye. And is there one that didn't pass that should have? That all next on the Hoffman Show. Really, Anthony? We're going this on the course of rule changes. It's a little different kind of changes that I think Tupac was looking for.
No, you might be right. I didn't know the song was gonna play that long.
I mean, I was sitting here laughing. That you, I think, that was on purpose, right? You did that. Also, way to, as I'm talking to you on the air, stuff food in your mouth. You just peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Looks delicious. As you, I'm just proud of you for not chewing into the microphone. We're just gonna let you. Anthony's just chewing. I will say, by the way, if you want to hear that song and have it hit, I mean, obviously the original is amazing, a classic. It rings true to this day. If you would like to hear that song and have it hit you differently, just a refresh on it. John Baptiste, like the jazz artist, used to be the pian or the musician, like lead musician for Colbert Show, but he's a Grammy Award winner. Also, his documentary on Netflix is incredible. He does a version of Changes. It's like a piano version. Unreal.
I gotta tap into it. I don't know.
Like
I don't think I've heard it.
I listened to it on. It just came up because I love John Baptiste, and so I was listening to like This Is John Baptiste on Spotify, and that his version came up, and I was like, this is insane. This is so good. So there you go. You want to check out a classic and a redone incredibly well in a way that is poignant by one of the world's best musicians. Changes by John Baptiste. There you go. See, this is why you tune into this here radio show for all 3 hours every single day, as much as you possibly can, because you never know what kind of good information you're going to get. But if you do have, responsibilities and things to do between the hours of 4 and 7, we are on demand anytime, anywhere on the free Odyssey app or your favorite podcast platform. Just search The Hoffman Show for all our Commanders coverage and more. Also on YouTube at the Team 980, you can rewatch the full show on demand. And of course, we cut up the best of it each and every day at Craig Hoffman and at the Team 980 for you to watch in chunks on demand as well. Okay, Anthony, another day, more rule changes. We got the NFL shifting to kind of the former XFL style kickoff. Should I just do the worst thing, but is also the best thing, and just read that the way that this is going to work so that people can hear it, do our best, or should I try to paraphrase and risk stumbling all over the place?
Do you fully understand the new kickoff format?
I do. I actually do. Okay. I'm gonna try to do this off the top of the dome here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it might hit better because if you read it,
it might also, I might miss some stuff. But let me see. So I'm gonna try to paint the picture. The ball is still gonna be kicked off from the 35-yard line. So that's step one.
Yes.
The ball and the kicker are at the 35, like their own 35-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
But the other 10 players on the kickoff team will line up at the opposing team's, the return team's, 40-yard line.
Yep.
So you got lonely kicker in football, and he's got to kick it deep. No onside kicks unless you've alerted the refs prior and said, hey, we're going to onside kick. So they've taken that strategic, Sean Payton famous in the Super Bowl surprise onside kick, doesn't exist anymore. So the kicker is at their own 35-yard line, standing by their own self. They kick the ball deep, and the rest of the coverage players are at the 40-yard line of the return team. Between 5 and 10 yards away from them is either 9 or 10 players that are returning the kick, that are blockers. So they line up between the 30 and 35-yard line. So you're going to still have a collision, but it's happening within like a 5 to 10-yard area. And that those players can only move when the ball has been touched by one of the returners. The returners are going to be in what they call the landing zone, which is 20-yard line and in. So they're back, back to their own goal line, up to the 20-yard line. And if the ball is kicked through the end zone for a touchback, it now goes to the 30. So they're kind of discouraging you doing that. If you think you can stop the return game before the 30, then you're probably going to kick it high and hope that your guys can get down there and make a tackle. So you got kicker at their own 35, coverage players at the 40, return blockers between the 30 and 35, and then the 20 and in, you can have up to 2 potential returners in the quote-unquote landing zone. How'd I do?
You left out there's no fair catches.
Yep, no fair catches, so you can't fair catch it at the 10-yard line and be like, we get the ball at the 30.
And I forgot, if it lands in the landing zone and goes into the end zone, I think you have to bring it out.
Let's see. From what I'm looking at, I don't remember seeing that, but you might be right. I feel like that's still probably a touchback, but maybe if it lands before the goal line, I don't see that in the write-up that I'm looking at, but you might be right.
Yeah, that's the only other question I would have. Just like if it lands in the landing zone and then, ends up bouncing into the end zone, do you necessarily have to bring it out? But outside of that, I think you pretty much painted the picture on the new kickoff format.
No one other than the kicker and returners can move until the ball hits the ground or hits a player inside the landing zone. Touchbacks will be marked at the 30-yard line. No fair catches will be allowed. That's all it says.
Oh.
But the goal is, and this, by the way, passed 29-3.
Yeah.
In the XFL, where they used similar rules, kicks were returned 90% of the time. NFL special teams coaches think that this will be like an 80% return rate.
Easily.
And I think this is awesome. The only thing that I wish they would have done is also done the 4th and 15 or 4th and 20 onside kick. That instead of the very stupid onside kick currently existing in the NFL, which that is not changing, right? The NFL's traditional, or at least most recent version of the rule, because I guess the traditional was like let's kick the ball off the ground and to give guys a running head start and see if we can destroy someone as they touch the ball and then recover it. But now it's less of that because they have to start from they can't run up and try to time it. So you have to standing start. Anyway, the point is, instead of that, which almost never works, I would like to see a 4th down, like at their own 20-yard line, your 4th and 20 or 4th and 15, and let's have offenses and defenses decide those critical situations instead of weird, squibby onside kicks. But in terms of the down in, down out, or I guess kickoff in, kickoff out, why are we wasting time watching kickers just boom the ball through the end zone and guys running wind sprints down the field? I'm so happy that's over because the kickoff is a part of the game. It is something that a lot of guys are going to get jobs and keep jobs based off of, and you're doing it in a way that takes out the most dangerous stuff from a player safety standpoint. This just feels like a win all around.
But do you like the fact that there's probably going to be a lot more kick returns, to be honest?
Yeah, that's great. Kick returns are exciting. Did you like touchbacks?
Nah, it's not necessarily. I think it just made it a little bit easier to actually score some points. Say you have a Keyshawn Nixon from the Packers. Who else is a good returnman? The Steelers just got Cordell Patterson. All those guys need to do is make one cut and be gone. So I guess it's going to put a lot more pressure on teams to go out there and get a return specialist.
100%.
And maybe that spikes and increases their position.
But that's great. That is a return specialist now is a spot that you want on your roster.
Yep.
And
clearly.
There's also, I think, an improved or enhanced need for guys who can cover kicks. Right?
Yep.
Those types of Logan did a really good job of talking about this, and he has a great perspective on it because he was one of these guys. That's a lot of middle class of the NFL, good special teams players, and there just weren't a lot of them. And you had all these teams kind of taking out massive flyers on high upside prospects because you didn't need to worry about if they were good on special teams. And what that meant was you have a lot of middle class level players who never get the chance to develop because special teams is what used to keep them on rosters until they were good enough to maybe break through as offensive or defensive starters. And there's value in those guys. And I think the league is better for having them. So support the middle class. Return the kickoff. But in all honesty, like, that's what's going to happen. Yeah. Guys like
they just want to see the scoring go up.
That are 4th and 5th round, like safeties and linebackers or running backs that can cover kicks, like, become really valuable all of a sudden in a way that they weren't when we woke up this morning. So that's cool for them.
It's going to be very interesting, especially because special team coaches, they're going to have to figure out how to defend these.
They got to scheme up some returns and some coverages.
Did you see the in the XFL when they ran the reverse and the guy ended up taking it to the crib?
I don't remember that.
I'm thinking it's going to be a lot of like creative stuff that you do.
Give me innovation. Give me creativity. Man. I love it. Do you like this new rule? 301-230-0980. Simple question. New kickoff rule. Yay or nay? 301-230-0980. We discuss with you next. talk to Justin Williams, who's covering the NCAA tournament at the top of the hour right now. More from the NFL's annual meeting down in Orlando on the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I'm Craig Hoffman, super producer Anthony Haney alongside. If you're watching on YouTube, you see him. He's right there. We, of course, stream live all show long at the Team 980. And if you miss any part of it, we are on demand. The Hoffman Show podcast, wherever you get yours. We do it hour by hour. So coming up in just a few minutes, if you missed some earlier thoughts in the 5 o'clock hour, earlier part of the show, Anthony will have it up for you. So that is how that goes. So the other big announcement coming out of the NFL's annual meeting today is they are going to play on Christmas again this year. Now, last year, that was not that hard because I believe Christmas was on a Sunday, if I'm remembering correctly. So, Anthony, first of all, how does the calendar work that Christmas goes from Sunday to Wednesday this year? I thought it typically moved a day or two at a time because we have a leap year in 2024. So how does it go from Sunday to Wednesday, though?
It's a great question, Craig, that I quite frankly don't have an answer for because I thought my birthday was going to be on Monday this year. Instead, it is also on a Wednesday. So I don't really know.
I'm just going to confirm that everyone's talking about this, right? Yeah, no, Christmas right there on a Wednesday.
Yep.
And I'm not remembering incorrectly. You can go back to 2023. Scroll. No, last year it was on no, that's January. We need December. No, it was on a Monday last year. So
Really?
That makes sense. Okay, yeah, no, that's right. It was on a Monday. So it skips Tuesday and it winds up on Wednesday because leap year. You gonna be okay over there? You look very perplexed.
Okay, yeah. Now I understand.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. I was like, Sunday to Wednesday? What happened? No, there was football, so I thought it was Sunday, but it was actually on Monday. The point is, the NFL is going to play a game on a Wednesday, not because players were sick with COVID and they had no choice, not because of any other reason. They're going to purposely play a game on a Wednesday. In fact, they're not just going to play one game. They are going to play two. And what they're going to do is they're going to have the 4 teams that play on Wednesday play on Saturday the week before. So that's going to be week what? Like 16? Something like that. So week 15, they'll play on Saturday. And Roger Goodell's justification in his press conference today is that's the same as going from Sunday to Thursday, which is a thing that's also terrible for player safety and the quality of the game. But it's a money grab. It gives the NFL a big bleep you to the NBA, who has always kind of owned Christmas. And they, last year, put some pretty good games. You know, we had Ravens 49ers, for instance, on Christmas last year. The Chiefs played on Christmas last year. So going into Christmas weekend, you're going to have at least two, if not 3 Saturday games. That typically is the weekend the NFL does start playing on Saturdays as college football is over. And then some combination of the 4 teams that play on Saturday will play again on Wednesday. I will say, Anthony, unsurprisingly, I think to most people who have listened to me for a while, I hate this. I hate it with like every fiber of my being.
I hate it because I always view Christmas as an NBA day.
I don't disagree.
And now I'm not even thinking about, the player safety and anything of that. I'm just thinking from a fan perspective of sports.
Have some respect, Roger.
And it's just like, God dang, the NFL is just, they want it all. They want to play on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, like, dude. So I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I probably will tap in and watch.
That's the thing is we're gonna watch. And
we're complaining now.
We are a part of the problem.
Yes.
I will say it's a little different to me on Christmas, and if this was a special occasion thing, here's my thing with and I guess the NFL now because they skipped over a Tuesday. That seems like the hardest one to do. I guess you'd probably carry it over. You go like, hey, you're going to play Tuesday and then maybe the Monday nighter next week. But I don't know because buys are done. You can't play multiple teams. I don't know. They'll figure out the Tuesday thing when in 5 or 6 years when they have to deal with the Tuesday. But they don't have to for a while because they just skipped Tuesday, went to Wednesday, then it'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, leap year, whatever. Anyway, the point is they'll figure it out. NFL football is, as a game, 2 teams that have spent an entire week trying to figure out how to beat each other. There is a schematic, detailed game plan element to NFL football that is part of the reason why it's the highest level of football. It's not, hey, we're just going out there and drawing up plays in the dirt. You spend the whole week game planning. And there's stuff that gets found out as the week goes on, and that affects the game plan, and you practice it a certain way, and there's a rhythm to it that allows for the best version of football on the planet. When you play on 4 days rest, not only is it bad for the players' bodies, which should be enough, but all that stuff gets thrown out the window. You are doing such a pared down version of your game plan, of the actual stuff that makes the sport great, even if a lot of us can't see it on television. It contributes to the greatness. Like, that is, to me, like, it's just not NFL football. And I get the money aspect. I get that it's a business. But at some point, do you have enough pride in your own game to be like, we can't diminish and dilute the product? And they don't care. And I think that's such a bummer, where it's very clear if they can make extra money, they don't care about the kind of product they put out there. They don't care about the player safety element. They will care about player safety when it affects the product to an extent that it could cost them money. Part of the reason why they banned the hip drop tackle is because they don't want Patrick Mahomes getting hip drop tackled and missing 3 weeks of a season because their TV ratings won't be as good. Do they care about Pat Mahomes' ankles? Of course. Do they care as much as the money that Pat Mahomes' ankles make them? Hell no. And that hypocrisy is what drives me nuts. Not that they shouldn't continue to make the game safer, not that they shouldn't continue to make the game better, but I just wish the league had an ounce of pride in the actual product that they put on the field. Or actually, better yet, I wish they had more ounces of pride about the actual product than they did care about the ounces of money in their bank account.
I think you said it perfectly, especially when you said something along the lines of them diluting the product. And to an extent, it's just like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it, but I feel like they're sort of kind of oversaturating the market to an extent.
No, that's totally true. It's something that I think I've definitely mentioned before too. Like, scarcity can be good.
Exactly.
Like, I want to get to Sunday itching for football.
Thank you.
And when there's games on Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, by Sunday I'm like, brah.
I'm all footballed out.
Yeah, like, oh, now I got to watch the burgundy and gold team poop all over themselves. Hopefully not this year. Hopefully they'll be better. But God, by the way, I never watch Monday Night Football anymore unless it's an A+ game. Why? Because I'm footballed out. But if you give it to me just on Sunday and Monday, and I think this is probably a lot of other people too, like, we got wives or girlfriends or husbands or whoever the football fan of the family is, there's only so much time you can look over at your partner and be like, hey, honey, more football on TV? It's like, how about anything else?
Yeah.
How about we spend some time outside? How about we touch grass? Like, give us some time to touch grass, Roger. Give us some time to touch grass. When we get back, Justin Williams joins us from The Athletic, talking NCAA tournament and the future of college basketball here on the Team 980. Final hour here on the Hoffman Show. Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And, of course, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And it's our pleasure now to welcome in Justin Williams of The Athletic. Justin is a staff writer there who covers college sports. And thus, this time of year, he is covering the NCAA tournament. Justin, what's up, man? How are you? I am doing very well. So I wanted to get into a couple of things with you on the NCAA tournament, and most of them are actually pretty big picture. The first kind of topic I would say that I would love to get your thoughts on is someone who, and I think your perspective as someone who covers both college basketball and college football and is watching the landscape of college sports as a whole here, is interesting because we're seeing how NIL money and some of the other things are influencing those two sports in particular. We see that some of these blue bloods go out early. We see Kentucky, we see Kansas, we see some of the stars, whether opting out or injury-wise, not playing in the NCAA tournament or being careful with an injury where they're not going to be there in the NCAA tournament. Meanwhile, you've got a North Carolina as a 1 seed rolling through their first couple of games with a starting lineup, the average age of the Oklahoma City Thunder. How has the NIL money and maybe who some of these programs are pursuing change the landscape of college basketball, and how is that playing out here in March so far? For sure. Are we seeing, though, like in the recruiting scene, is a team like North Carolina, a school like North Carolina starting to recruit a different kind of player? Because I remember like when the one and done obviously comes into vogue, Cal first at Memphis with a guy like D. Rose, and then obviously Kentucky owned that space for a while. K was like, all right, fine, if this is how we're going to do it. He comes in and Duke has a great couple of years recruiting like that. And now, again, seeing a program like North Carolina with some seniors, seeing some of these other top schools that have some experienced players. Are we starting to see some of the top schools recruit in a different way, whether that's via the transfer portal or recruiting players who they think can be four-year players out of high school versus pursuing the best guys that are going to college? Justin Williams, staff writer for The Athletic, is with us here on the Hoffman Show. So I know you covered the pod with Houston as well. I received quite a bit of praise for your game story on their round of 32 win as well. So if you want to go read about that, definitely check out Justin's work in The Athletic. We had Kevin Brown on the show last week, good friend of mine who obviously covers the American Athletic Conference for ESPN, calling games. And he said he thinks Kelvin Sampson's the best coach in the country. When he goes to practice, and the access obviously they get as the broadcast team is pretty exclusive. When he goes to a Kelvin Sampson practice, it looks so much different than every other practice he's at. Why do you think he's been able to do what he's done at Houston and maintain this high level of success for a number of years now? What makes him that great coach? Justin Williams from The Athletic with us here on the Hoffman Show. Look forward to that piece for sure. And I also think it's kind of, I don't know, it's ironic, funny, whatever the word that goes here is, that they grind teams down and yet they're scoring 100. They are able to keep the pace high, and I think that's something that's been nice to see. And there's of course going to be games like the Tennessee-Texas game, which was just abysmal. Like that was a grind in the absolute worst way. College basketball at its worst, where you don't get a team above 65. But there's been a ton of games where there's been a lot more scoring in this NCAA tournament. What do you attribute that to? Is that, pace of play generally in basketball these days being faster at all levels? Is that, a mentality shift, better shooters staying in school longer? Like what has led to the uptick where we have had some games finishing, 195 in regulation? Right. Yeah, it's like everyone watched Caitlin Clark in Iowa on the women's side. It was like, wait, our game's 40 minutes too. How many points can we score? We love this math. All right, last couple of minutes here with Justin Williams from The Athletic. Of course, he's joining us here on the Hoffman Show, which you can listen to on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app. So it's, as you said, mostly chalky Sweet 16. Do you like any of the two teams that or either of the two teams? We'll go Clemson, NC State here, are kind of our crashers, a 6 and an 11 seed. Do you like either of them to have a chance to make the Final Four? They have, as I have the bracket in front of me, North Carolina State is playing Marquette. And then, of course, if they do that, they will presumably, they would get either Houston or Duke. So that will be tough, obviously, for them to get all the way to the Final Four, as we discussed Houston's prominence earlier and Houston's play earlier. Last thing, I always love to tack this on as more of an NBA guy myself, and obviously we are an NBA town here. At least we're pretending to be with whatever the Wizards are doing right now, but they are going to be picking very highly in a couple of weeks in the NBA draft. Do you have any favorite NBA prospects that people can watch this weekend as we get to focus in? Not multiple games going at once, but it's like, hey, I got to make sure I carve out time to watch this guy play because he could be in a Wizards uniform at the top of the draft next year. Mm. That's really fascinating because I think that the NBA, the best teams realize we got to find stars in their roles. And, for a lottery pick, that doesn't even necessarily have to be being the star. You don't have to be the star at being the star. If you're a star in your role outside of being like a top 3 pick kind of guy, and even then, depending on the year, that's really fascinating. And I think you're right, would endear players to certain NBA GMs building teams certain ways. And especially the way college basketball is right now. We'll see, over the next couple of years, the G League Ignite shutting down if players, the best American players, return to college. But basically what I'm saying, Justin, is I will read that piece. So when you write that, I will be on the lookout for it. Justin Williams, writing for The Athletic, covering college sports, doing a great job. Justin, this was great. Really appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of the tournament, and perhaps we'll talk to you again before it's all said and done. That is Justin Williams, again, from The Athletic with us here on The Hoffman Show. Anthony, we're now in an awkward, I went too long with the guests. We could take a break, or we could just keep talking amongst ourselves. What do you want to do, dear producer of this radio show?
I think we should talk amongst ourselves.
Okay, we can do that. Hey, Anthony, what do you want to talk about?
I mean, you guys were just talking about the NCAA tournament and which of the underdogs could definitely make some noise. I am with Justin when it comes to NC State. Again, like, they're America's team, the Cinderella story, and I've liked what I've seen out of them so far. To have won 7 games in 12 days it seems crazy. But I think they're riding the momentum, and I think that's really what college basketball is all about. Even the NBA, it's just about getting hot at the right time, and I think they're gelling at a very good time, and they're led by some seniors. So I really like what NC State has, and I think they'll be able to take down Marquette. I still have them in my Elite Eight. I do have them falling though, but I do have them getting past Marquette in the Sweet 16.
And, well, obviously everyone should pick with Anthony because he got 14 of his 16 correct. I think, what I love about March is the survive and advance element of it. And good teams do this. Like on the women's side, Iowa last night, right? That game was a bloodbath of a game. Like, it was funny. I almost looked at Rachel at one point and said, this game is a bloodbath. And then I look up at the screen again, and Caitlin Clark is bleeding from the knee. It literally became a bloodbath. And it's the kind of thing where, I don't really think anything different about Iowa other than they survived a tough game that wasn't remotely played in the style that they like. This is a team that scores 80, 90 points a game. They're the best. They're the highest scoring team in Division I, and they were held in the 50s last night. And yet they survived the weekend, and now you get these couple of days to reset. And I think there's some other teams on both sides that kind of had similar weekends where it's like, can you just get through the opening weekend? And there is such a reward for surviving 2 games at a time. Like, getting to the Sweet 16 is a big deal. And that's why teams celebrate it. And you kind of get that moment to celebrate surviving the weekend. And then you reset. And then you go at it again in the Sweet 16. You don't have any time to celebrate getting to the Elite Eight because the game is 2 days later. You go play again. And if you're lucky enough to get to the Final Four, you cut down the nets for getting there because that's how significant the achievement is. And I think there's kind of a beauty in that tournament style that you play. Yes, it is one big tournament where you crown a champion at the end, but in some ways it's like 2-game tournament, rest, reset. 2-game tournament, rest, reset. And if you're lucky enough to be one of the Final Four, 2-game tournament, we're either the champions or we're not. And I think that there's a beauty in that. And I think for a team like NC State, if they can continue the rhythm, for them, they don't want a 2-game tournament. They're like, can we play again in 2 days? They figured something out late in the season or got hot or whatever it is. And they're like, let's just keep this gravy train rolling. Whereas if you're a team that maybe struggled a little bit or you played a super physical game, super emotional too for some of these teams, right? Like for Iowa on the women's side, not just Caitlin Clark, but Kate Martin and Gabby Marshall and that vaunted senior class who's played literally 100 games at Carver Hawkeye Arena. That's an emotional goodbye. And that's something that's unique to the women's side of it because they play at the tournaments. LSU's saying goodbye probably to Angel Reese and Haley Van Lith. I mean, for Angel, she's been there multiple years. Haley, it's just the one. But, you get that emotional goodbye. Aaliyah Edwards at UConn, getting that emotional goodbye before moving to the neutral sites for the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. But even on the men's side of it, there's just this intensity of these 2 days don't want to be the team that's upset. You get these teams that are super scrappy, that play different styles or have weird quirks, or that one dude who does the weird thing that you haven't seen all year, and all of a sudden you got dude from Oakland hitting 10 threes, and you're like, where did that come from? And if you survive that weekend, it just you get a chance to chill. And then it's like, oh, now we're in it. Because once you're at the Sweet 16, you're 2 wins from the Final Four. And so, like, that emotional lift is very real, I think. And you have that chance to reset. And so I wonder how a team like NC State, who's been riding a high, handles that. Because they don't want to, as I said, they don't want to reset.
No, they don't.
They just want to keep that gravy train rolling.
Yeah, and also I just feel like with NC State, they really prioritize every possession. I feel like, and that's what we see like down the stretch of all these games. Like these possessions like really matter. They're constantly utilizing the full shot clock, and yeah. So like NC State, if they play their speed, slow the game down, defend, bang inside with DJ, and then like play like that, I think. I don't know. It's gonna take them far. It's gonna take them far. But to your point about them getting this 3, 4, 5 day rest before the Sweet 16, it might be a little concerning because of the run that they've been on.
Yeah, we'll see. We can talk. Do you want to talk about the women's tournament next? We got NFL stuff. I don't know. We'll figure it out in the break. We'll be back at 6:30 talking about sports here on the Hoffman Show. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. So, Anthony, earlier today, we expected to, spend some part of the show talking about what Dan Quinn said at the NFC Coaches Breakfast. Turns out Dan Quinn didn't say a whole lot of interesting stuff. Dan was pretty milquetoast.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think it's a bad thing. At this point, what are you going to say in the offseason?
That we are exploring the possibility of trading back, maybe.
I mean, he kind of said that earlier in the week.
Exactly.
But he's like, it's not. You have to talk to Adam. It's Adam's position. I'm not ruling anything out. It's funny, though, because people were, like, upset at him for saying that. But if you had been like, yep, we're definitely looking quarterback. And let's see, just straight up goes, no comment. Like, if he's like, yep, we're definitely, it's safe to say we're exploring quarterback at number 2. People would have been like, they're not trading back. And it's like, just, there's no way. He was honest. Honesty is good.
And we all know.
And we all know that they're probably staying put at 2. And if someone wants to make an offer that Adam Peters likes, then maybe they'll trade back. But if not, nothing changed because of those comments. Yeah, people freaked out because it's March, and that's what people do. Anyway, Josh Harris had some interesting stuff to say, which sometimes used to be the most terrifying type of sentence, which is that you would you'd hear the owner said something that was interesting, and you'd be like, no. But Josh Harris is smart. And also, this happened to be not a football thing, but something that Josh Harris should be talking about, which is the stadium. This morning, met with a group of reporters, and I believe this is from JP, NBC4, including JP Finley. So thanks to NBC4 for this audio. And he was asked about the latest on the stadium front, specifically a potential return to RFK.
Obviously, the stadium is a pressing issue, but what about the practice facility and just remodeling it or looking for something new? I'm sure you saw that NFLPA report card, and that had to be kind of troubling.
Yeah, I'm not an F- guy, so I didn't even know you could get an F-. Look, obviously we've jumped all over that. I mean, first of all, that report was based on interviews that occurred, right around the ownership change. So, but having said that, it's clearly something that we're focused on. And in fact, Adam and Dan had to leave the NFL meetings briefly to go have a discussion with architects that we're trying to make a lot of changes there quickly. And obviously it starts with the NFL player community is a small community. The NFL coaching community is a small community. You want to be a place that everyone says, that's a great place to be. And therefore we need to upgrade that facility. And we are upgrading that facility. And there's only so much you can do prior. Obviously we have to look at, okay, how much can we do? It's a lot like the situation we were in when we took over in last July. There's only so much you can do by the start of the season. There's only so much we can do by the start of training camp, and we're going to do that. And it's going to be about the player experience, the player lounge, refinishing, a bunch of things. But we have a lot more planned in terms of looking at the playing surface itself, looking at the locker room, looking at the bathroom facility. So everything we can do right now to make our players feel great about coming to work, feel comfortable, feel well taken care of, we're going to do.
So there it is on the practice facility side. And I think what you hear there is a dedication to make it as good as possible right now, even while they pursue RFK and others. Anthony, did we have any of the other sound from RFK or any of the other stuff? If not, I can paraphrase based off of what people tweeted.
I do not. I had cut it short.
Okay, no, all good.
It was a little long.
All good. So I thought that was a really interesting answer and really enlightening onto kind of who these guys are, because I think it'd be really easy to be like, yeah, we're going to get new stuff eventually, so deal with it. We're not spending, we just spent $6 billion on the team. We're going to spend another somewhere between $2 and $7 billion on a stadium. We're not spending more money on the current stadium, and we're not spending new money on a practice facility when we're going to build and buy a new one. But they're like, no, we need, part of what's going to help us pay for the new one is being better. And being better requires investment. And they understand the concept of ROI, return on investment. In order to get a return on your investment, you need to do the investment part. And like they want to win. And this stuff is going to help on the margins win, whether it's helping acquire players because they're like, yeah, no, I will go there. And I don't think anybody signs because of a facility, Anthony. It's kind of actually the other way around. No one walks into a facility and is like, I'm playing here. That's a sweet locker room. But what they might do is be like, I'm not playing here. This is an unprofessional locker room. So it takes you out from being on the no list, puts you in the mix. And then depending on what kind of offer you make and what role you see for the player, like all that kind of stuff comes into play. Obviously on the stadium side, better fan experience will lead to more fans. That leads to more revenue, and that will ultimately help pay for the stadium that they want to build because they will make more money. So it's good business to do this stuff, not to mention the right thing to be at an NFL standard. But there were also discussions today that are very similar to things that I've heard recently when it comes to the stadium. Like they've had discussions, Anthony, with all three jurisdictions, which is good. And that's what like the crazy thing, not to just punch on Dan. It's the easiest thing in the world. But like that's what made the Snyder thing so wild when they couldn't get a stadium is like you have probably the most unique situation in the country. It's not totally unique, because you can put cities against each other, counties, and in a couple of other places you can put states. Like in New York, you can put New York and New Jersey against each other. Obviously, Jersey has held the Jets and the Giants for a long time. I mean, technically in Philadelphia, if you wanted to try to build in New Jersey or Delaware as opposed to Pennsylvania, like it sits on a tri-state spot, pulling the Eagles out of actual Philadelphia proper, and Pennsylvania would go over like a lead balloon. But then again, it's a possibility. Obviously, like Miami and Fort Lauderdale and some of the cities in between have kind of fought over the Dolphins, and the Dolphins have kind of split the difference with where they are in Miami Gardens, I believe it's called. But it's way north of the city of Miami. So like there's a lot of places like this, but I think the DMV is like most uniquely situated as truly three entities that feel like they have some kind of stake here, because DC is the spiritual home of the team, Maryland is where they have been for a long time, and Virginia is where the practice facility is. And so the fact that they couldn't even get any kind of offer or any kind of clearance to do any of these places is pretty wild. Tells you how toxic he was. But I think what my understanding is, and I don't think Josh Harris said anything today that would contradict this, is they want to get this done at RFK. That's the goal. But they are doing their due diligence because they take processes seriously, and doing due diligence seriously, they are doing their homework so that if they can't get through to RFK, which is possible because it is controlled by the federal government, and they do wacky stuff because they're, the federal government is sometimes controlled by Democrats, sometimes controlled by Republicans. And this is not exactly a straight line partisan issue where certain people might be looking to, hey, if you help me here, I'll give you a vote on RFK there. And like wacky stuff happens. This is why DC home rule is really important, and we should rip away control of our city from the federal government, but that's a different show. But if they can't unlock RFK because it is federal land and it's in the district and all of those red tapey type of things, they will have done their homework on Maryland and on Virginia. And I think, I would have to imagine that the Commanders have done so much more work than Monumental did on this. What happened to Monumental in Virginia will not happen to the Commanders. They have been working on this for years. And even when they started over when Jason Wright got there, which is essentially what they did, they were like, everything Bruce Allen did, poopsie. Let's let Jason get in there. Jason has a long history on Capitol Hill. Like when he was with McKinsey, he did a lot of stuff helping write legislation. Like that is part of what his job was at McKinsey. So he's very well connected there and knows how to play that game in a way that it appears no one at Monumental Sports does. And so I would imagine they have done so much work on Maryland, so much work on Virginia, and not to mention immense amounts of work on RFK, so that if they can, when it comes time to make a decision, when it comes time to say, all right, we either have RFK, let's go, or we're not getting RFK, we can't wait any longer, which I would say is probably 1 or 2 years more worth of waiting. As they do all the budget stuff, which is happening for some odd reason right now. Or that's, again, politics thing where they just passed a budget until September 30th, but these things tend to happen in omnibus bills at the end of the year. Yay, politics. Great government we've got going. Great way we do this is politicians try to do all kinds of crazy stuff and get all their favors and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, if they can't get RFK, they will be ready to go and say, Virginia, what's your final offer? Maryland, what's your final offer? Let's make a decision and let's boogie. And it sounds like that's what Josh Harris said today, is they're considering all 3 jurisdictions. They're in contact with all of them. They are doing this in the way that you'd hope a professional organization would, which feels like it should be a sure thing. But with what just happened with Monumental, which, by the way, Harris also said that they are monitoring closely, apparently is not a given. So there's that. All right. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. When we get back, we will wrap up the show with real things real people said into real microphones. And Anthony and I are going to fight about the Iowa game. Wrapping up the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Real things in about 5 minutes. But first, the Iowa game last night. Caitlin Clark and company survive and advance the NCAA women's basketball tournament round of 32. Anthony, you think West Virginia got screwed in this game?
I don't think they got screwed completely, but I do like to I would like to point out the foul discrepancy.
There was
30-5. It's insane in any game.
30-5 in free throw attempts. That, by the way, is also booned by the fact that West Virginia was fouling on purpose late to try to stop the clock. So like 6, 8, 10 of those free throws are intentional fouls late in the game. That probably feels important to point out. It does feel like a large discrepancy, 27-11 in terms of fouls. And someone who you just sent me did a compilation of the most questionable calls. Anthony, I would like to, with you, go through all of these.
Okay, let's go there.
Do you have the video up?
Yes, I do.
Okay, here we go. It starts late in the first quarter, which, by the way, Iowa's always up.
Not a foul right there. Not a foul.
It's close. It's probably not a foul. There is a body bump down low, though. That you can't do that. You can't go hip to hip on a player, even if your hands are straight up.
In these good games, in a South Carolina LSU game, you're not calling that. In an Iowa LSU game, you're not calling that kind of game.
I'm okay with letting that go. There is a foul. I understand why they called it by the letter of the law, but like NCAA tournament game, fine. Okay, there's one that we could say is a no. Next one, there's a hip check as Caitlin Clark tries to dribble up the floor. That's a foul. The next one, she's hitting her arms multiple times as Clark drives to the lane. That's a foul. So far, you're at best 1 for 3. That's a reach over the top as on an entry pass to Hannah Stolke. That one's close, but I think is a foul. It's a tough angle to watch that one from. That one to me is more 50-50 ball. Clark tries to lob a pass into the lane to Stolke. Two players come together, more of a 50-50. But also that gets called all the time on the defensive player. Is what it is. Next one. And one on Stolke. That's a body foul. That's a correct call. This is a stupid foul. That's a reach. That is absolutely a foul. On Clark, dribbling up the court. That's probably a phantom foul as Clark dribbles towards the end of the third quarter, gets an and one.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a phantom foul. It's a star call. Whistle goes to the aggressor is what it is. All right. 4.8 to go in the third quarter. This one is hilarious to me because Kate Martin gets hammered. On the follow-through.
I don't know why she was
putting that on this compilation is an embarrassment for the person who did this compilation.
Well, I didn't see the slowdown for that. I don't know.
I did. It was egregious.
Okay.
Gabby Marshall takes a charge. That one was a questionable block charge. I'll give that.
Yep.
The next one, Stolke dribbling the ball up near. And this is also, by the way, this kind of late third quarter, early fourth quarter is when the game got super physical, and because West Virginia was like, we're going to hammer our way into this game, and the refs were like, no, you're not. You're going to play legally, and you're going to play basketball. You're not going to just you're not just going to do the thing where you foul so much that we don't call it. And so that's a block on Stolke out near half court. Let's see. Now we're 7:55 to go. Marshall. Oh, that was an off-ball foul. Where did that? I missed that.
It was on the woman face guarding Caitlin Clark. You called it on that.
Yeah, that's questionable call.
Super questionable.
But they're at that point they had tightened the whistles. Like this is the kind of thing where a cut up doesn't do it justice. As someone who watched the game, the referees were like, you guys need to stop hammering them, Iowa, on every possession. You're fouling every time. Stop doing that. We're calling it tight. Knock it off. And they kept just trying to manhandle Clark and manhandle everyone else. And I get it. She's really hard to guard. But you have to guard legally. Like that's literally the point of the game. And they were getting super handsy and they didn't adjust. That's on West Virginia. Sorry. Clark to the lane. Gets fouled. That's a foul. Little bump on the drive.
You don't call that with 2 minutes left to go in
the
title game.
That was a bit of a soft call. Little bit of
32.
a body bump. Here, players all over Stolke. That's a foul. Clark super handsy in the backcourt. That's a foul. Yeah, like 80, 90% of those are no question fouls.
All I'm saying is, Craig, when you're playing high-level competition in basketball games like this, I don't know if you're making every one of those. I hear you. And, again, I think questionable is the right way to, phrase it, because some of them are questionable.
But 80% of them weren't even questionable, if not 90%.
I don't know. I can't wait to see this kind of, like, chippiness and physicality, when Iowa plays I don't know who's on their side.
LSU?
An LSU or, a South Carolina, a UConn. I can't wait to see that kind of game because I guess if they play UConn, Mueller's going to be all over Caitlin Clark. And guess what? They're not going to just call endless fouls on her because they want to see a good game. They want to see, get up and down. I just don't know.
But here's the thing about Caitlin. Like, she is both faster and stronger than people realize.
Yeah.
And because of that, she draws a lot of fouls. And, yes, does she get some star treatment? Of course, she's a star. But she's also, and because defenders are terrified that she's going to shoot from everywhere at all times, you see them foul her with frequent, as someone who's watched a lot of Iowa, she gets fouled a lot because she can make defenders jump and get in bad positions, and she is strong enough to play through it now. As a younger player, she wasn't. This is the thing that I don't think, I'm curious to see how this translates to the W, because she is not someone who's coming out of school without a WNBA body. She is built now. 2 years ago, no. Currently,
it's almost like the Jordan treatment.
She's ready.
He had to go do a
They're gonna try to be physical as hell with her, but if don't foul her, she's an 87% free throw shooter, 86% free throw shooter. So there's that. Do we have time for real things?
A little bit.
Okay, let's quickly hit real things, real people said into real microphones. You're going to have to tell me that one. That was too many. You did too many. So for the radio audience that can't see us right now, Anthony does hand signals for what time I'm supposed to stop talking and the show ends, and he held up too many fingers. That wasn't a number that was a number that works on the clock.
Yeah, so it's 56:15. So we have almost exactly a minute.
We have 1 minute left in the show. Okay, got it. Last night wound up being the final game for the third all-time leading scorer in NCAA history by the end of it. Daisha Fair from Syracuse, her teammate Georgia Woolley got emotional talking about playing with Fair one final time as the Orange lost to UConn.
Georgia, you've played with DeAsia your entire career. What is it you're going to miss most about playing alongside her in the backcourt?
I thought I was the one that had it together, y'all. What? Well, everything.
Everything. You think you got it, Ant, and then it's your time. The lights are on.
Them waterfalls, man.
It's just
it's a real thing.
For sure. All right, we will see you guys tomorrow. Linnell tomorrow. Other stuff tomorrow. See you then. Tomorrow.